So in this video, we're going to have a conversation, which just might actually be the conversation or the most important conversation. And what I mean is we're going to look at really our identity and our existence as human beings, or what we think our existence actually is. So the first idea we want to introduce and look at is this idea, or not this idea, but look at literally the definition of a virus or a parasite, and look at really what these things are and how these things function. We can, just from a basic level of understanding, observe that really viruses and parasites are this organism or this entity which basically uses its host for its own benefit. A virus or a parasite attaches in onto a host and then does what? Reproduces. What does it want to do? Reproduce. And that virus or that parasite might actually kill the host, but as long as it reproduces, doesn't really matter. You can look at the cordyceps, which is a parasitic fungus, which basically eats insects, causes insects to just freeze up somewhere, and then the mushroom and the parasite consumes the organism and then releases its spore into the air. Boom. Life over, but the parasite or the virus gets to reproduce. So we can see that really the main function, the main process of the virus or the parasite is not really caring at all about the host or really the environment, but only really caring about its survival and its reproduction. So we can translate and carry that over to what is called memetics, which is a good book called Virus of the Mind, which explores this conversation in more depth. But really what it does is just takes all these understandings from genetics, from understanding viruses and parasites, and draws strong parallels to how ideas and things in the mind operate. For example, if you have a really strong belief about yourself or about the world or about your religion or whatever, the number one thing that you often want to do is convert everyone else or defend that belief or make sure that that belief is able to be reproduced. Even if that belief might be destructive to your health, to your peace of mind, to your happiness, to the lives of other people, to the environment, whatever. And maybe just take a second and look at the state of the world, look at people in power or people that are making decisions in the world, look at environmental destruction, warfare, things of these nature, and see, is this a problem on the planet? Is this an issue that affects us collectively as a race and as a species? So these are important ideas to keep in mind, and to make it more specific, we can look at what we mean. And what we mean is our identity, how we define ourselves. We all have a certain story about ourselves, a certain interpretation of our life and the events that have happened in the past of our lives that have, quote, made us who we are. So we have basically, I am X. I'm a good person. I'm a bad person. I'm rich. I'm poor. I'm attractive, but if I did all these things, then I would be more attractive. Or people love me, people don't love me. I don't get enough love. I don't get enough respect. People don't listen to me. I don't get enough attention. I should be taller. I should be shorter. I should lose weight. I should gain weight. I should have bigger muscles. I'm a smart person. I'm intelligent. I'm enlightened, or I'm the opposite. We can go on and on and on with these different ideas and identities. The thing is most of us are in denial of what we actually have going on. And as a result, it's really just controlling us most of the time. Because there's people who are going to just hear this and be like, that's so stupid. Like, that's not me. I don't do that. Maybe other people do that, but I don't do that. Basically saying like, yeah, other people are human beings and they breathe, but not me. It's like, no, we have minds. We have thoughts. So we're really all doing this because it's fundamentally embedded in part of the fabric that makes up our world. So we have these ideas about ourselves. I am X, Y, or Z. Then we have our beliefs. This is the way the world is. And basically what that causes is a lot of defense and maintenance. Meaning we adopt these beliefs or these ideas or self-images about ourselves because we're taught we need to. And then we're taught we need to defend it. We need to defend our point of view. We need to defend our identity. We need to make ourselves known. We need to make all these things known. We have to prove these things to the world. We have to achieve all these things. We have to get this authority. We have to get all of these things so other people will know what we have going on. That's really just how we are trained and how we are conditioned in our world and how a lot of us live our lives. If you don't think it's true, just take a look around and observe the world for a minute and you'll see it. So the thing is, well, maybe that takes a lot of energy. Maybe that takes a lot of time. Maybe it's not really the best time or the best uses of our time and energy. Maybe it's actually a hindrance to our organism, meaning ourselves. In the same way that a virus or a parasite is using and consuming the energy of the host for its own benefit, perhaps these ideas are really just using us for their benefit. So the thing is these things cause us so much suffering. We have an idea about ourselves and then it gets knocked down. We think we're going to do this, it gets knocked down. We believe a certain thing about the world, it's disproven. So all of these things happen and it causes us suffering. We have an idea about how life should be and it isn't that way and we're upset. And then we suffer and then we wonder what we need to do, so we adopt all these things that we need to do so that we can hope that life will then fit our idea or our mold or our image of how it should be. But it usually doesn't, so it just causes more suffering, more stress, more tension. So we try to do another thing and another thing and another thing and another thing, where that's what happens. Or on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, people are just completely stuck in complete absence or a complete apathy and sort of disdain, where I'm just going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to do the exact same thing. I've been the same way for 30 years. I'm going to be the same way for the next 30 years. It doesn't matter. This is who I am. This is exactly this thing. This is who I am. This is my belief, and it's not going to change. This is what I'm going to keep doing. So, not that any of this stuff is good or bad, right or wrong. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do that, or you should believe this or you should believe that, or any of those things. The main thing that I'm trying to point out is exactly this. Now, what about what all of these things are based on? What about their foundational basis? Let's ask that question. What does that mean? What does that exactly refer to? Well, let's use some examples to illustrate what we mean. First example is there are no absolutes. Something that probably a lot of people are like, yeah, that's right, man. There's no absolutes, bro. The world's wide open. It's quantum physics. It's string theory. There's multi-dimensions. There's no absolutes. Everything's relative. Everything's in flow. People will say these kinds of things, but not really realize that by saying there are no absolutes, that is in and of itself an absolute. So that statement is in and of itself a contradiction of itself. Because in order for there to be no absolutes, there need to be absolutes, because no absolutes is in and of itself an absolute, thus negating itself. Confusing, maybe, maybe not. The next statement we can look at is if I say, this statement is false. Put that on a college paper, put that in front of people, and then just be like, yeah, okay, it's false, that's fine. Cool. But it's actually not false, because it's actually true that it is false. Because if it weren't true, it wouldn't be false. If it weren't false, then it wouldn't be true. And this causes a little bit of a tongue twister in our brain, because we're like, no, it's either this or it's that. That's it. And that's how we are trained to live our lives. But really what it comes down to is it's actually true and false and both and neither all at the same time. So yeah, it's true that the statement is false, but it's also not really true that it's false because the statement's actually true. So in that essence, it's actually both true and false. But at the same time, it's also neither, because it's an inherent contradiction. So then what are we left with? Nothing. Silence. Because as soon as we engage in this level of communication, I am X. This is my belief. This is who I am. This is how I live my life. This is right. This is what I have to do. This is, if I do this, then I'll get this thing, and this will happen. If I have all these stories, this is what's going to be. We have all these things, but at the same time, we can see that, well, wait, the whole logical structure that everything is based on is actually completely flawed and inaccurate, and is in essence basically just this. Basically the Zen circle, or the Ouroboros, which is the snake eating its tail, because this path of making these kinds of statements and this path of believing all these things and being trapped and stuck on this mental level will lead to this, around and around and around and around, for basically forever, because it's the snake eating its tail. It's the infinite circle inside of the infinite circle, because it's inherently a black hole. It's inherently flawed, which is perhaps why living so much on this mental plane, maybe that's why it causes suffering. Maybe that's why it's problematic. Maybe that's why it seems to really tweak and trigger people and cause all these emotional reactions. Because it's kind of like, for example, to use the illustration of a virus or parasite, let's say we take someone who's super addicted to sugar, sugarholic, or even an alcoholic, which is basically a sugarholic, or someone who has a lot of candida living in their body, which means organisms that love and feed on sugar, so they're sending signals to that person's brain to eat sugar, eat sugar, eat sugar, eat sugar, feel good, no sugar, feel bad. Let's say we just go to this person and say, you know what, here's all the sugar. Actually, no, wait, I'm taking it away, and you're going to be stuck in this room, and you can't have any sugar for the next 4 hours. What's going to happen? They're going to start freaking out. They're going to get upset. They're going to get angry. They're going to go through all these emotional things. They're going to probably turn into an insane, crazy person for a little bit. But let's look at, let's say we take away someone's belief or their self-identity, or we challenge it, or we just say, you know what, maybe just set that aside for a little bit. What happens? Start getting upset, start getting defensive, start going through all these different reactions and acting like probably a crazy person. Well, what is really causing that, and what is really behind the scenes? And is it necessarily useful or effective to live our lives from that mental plane as our dominant basis and our dominant approach for for dealing with reality and for interfacing with the physical world? Is that necessarily the best strategy? So take what we've talked about in light, think about those questions, see if there are answers, see if there aren't answers, see what comes up, see what doesn't come up. Might be a fun experiment. Either way, thanks for watching this video. It was a lot of fun drawing circles and scribbling on the whiteboard. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you have any questions or comments, post them below, and I'll talk to you soon.